How are you talking about the U.S. these days with your? What are people saying?
There is, I feel, a widespread perception that the United States of America is coming apart at the seams.
The meeting of the generals that took place today, everybody in Iraq is talking about it, and we don't know what is coming, what will this meeting be about. So everybody in Iraq is afraid of what's happening in the United States.
A lot of what we talk about amongst ourselves is based on what we see through these platforms, and that makes us quite mistrustful. We don't actually know what's reality and what is just a fabrication, but we see the polarization, and what's interesting for us as the Africans is we, for entirely different reasons, are experiencing the same type of polarization.
We have a lot of things inside that maybe we don't have too much time to pay attention about what's going on outside Colombia, because we have like really critical situations here. However,
think about what you are observing here in the United States right now, and how are you talking about this with your friends? There's a lot of conversation here about civil unrest, and maybe we're headed off a cliff. I mean, all sorts of things, right? How are you talking about the U.S. these days with your? What are people saying?
These are not good things that I'm going to be saying. From Northern Ireland, the conversations that I have within my family, with friends, with colleagues, with strangers in the street, everywhere I go, there is, I feel, a widespread perception that the United States of America is coming apart at the seams. And it is frightening us, not just because it is arguably the most powerful and influential nation on the planet, but because we see what is happening in America in terms of increasing polarization, fragmenting social cohesion, the erosion of shared underlying values, beliefs, and understandings about appropriate and acceptable behavior, the polarization of politics. We see it, and a sense of a shifting to the extreme, both to the right and to the left. We feel that in Northern Ireland, the United Kingdom, across the Western world, we are actually playing catch up with what is happening in the United States of America. So it is frightening us and it is concerning us. And I, as a peace builder, since the late 1980s, have a growing sense of disillusion, hopelessness, and helplessness, feeling that everything I have worked towards is somehow over the last few years starting to unravel again before my eyes. Now, that is my view, and there are many people in Northern Ireland who have a strongly oppositional position on that, and in many ways will look to what's happening, to aspects of what is happening in the United States, and will say, we need more of that here. We need a stronger stance on all these immigrants flooding our countries, stealing our jobs, doing this, that, and the other, etc., etc.
What is really scaring me and us, for us in the region as Iraqi, is first the situation with Iran. And Iraq will be caught in the middle, and it's very dangerous for us. We just still under recovery from the war. The sanctions on Iran will hurt Iraqi economy. The meeting of the generals that took place today, everybody in Iraq is talking about it, and we don't know what is coming. What will this meeting be about? So everybody in Iraq is afraid of what's happening in the United States. The tariffs is, Iraq is a very small country, and 35% is imposed on Iraqi exports to the US. And our economy cannot stand that. So there are so many things that is happening in the United States that's scaring people in Iraq.
I can definitely, it resonates, the sentiments here resonate with me. We are a country that's very fragile in terms of crumbling infrastructure. Our state-owned institutions are a mess. Our hospitals have virtually collapsed. Our railway, you name it. So it's we look upon what's happening in America, a lot of fear as well. The tariffs have hit us hard. We already have an unemployment rate of upwards of 42% and rising. So with the tariffs, our ports are closing down. And of course, that is a knock-on effect, because if the ports close down, anybody even indirectly related to it is going to suffer as well. But it's the polarization that worries us, because we see, and of course, we see a lot of this through the eyes of social media. So, and we don't know which media outlets to trust. Should we go to mainstream media outlets? Should we trust fringe? We don't know. So a lot of what we talk about amongst ourselves is based on what we see through these platforms. And that makes us quite mistrustful. We don't actually know what's reality and what is just a fabrication. But we see the polarization. And what's interesting for us as the Africans is we, for entirely different reasons, are experiencing the same type of polarization, with people moving very left and others moving very right. And with some of those of us trying to make sense of this caught in the middle. And I think we're finding it difficult to locate ourselves in this very unstable world. And although I don't believe that South Africa is on the brink of a civil war, we are under the threat of constant civil unrest due to social inequalities, unemployment, etc. People are really at the level of survival in this country.
And a long-standing history of institutionalized racism that you're still trying to get out from under after so many years. Yeah. I think that this idea of the threat of civil unrest, Susan, is what makes it's really nice to have you in this conversation, because that is so true in South Africa.
And what I want to add is, what's interesting about South Africa is we don't make the headlines, in the sense that bombs are not going off. We're not in a war, but we're a country of only 62 million people, and 26,000 people were murdered last year. Victims of violent crime. We have gender-based violence that's off the charts. So sometimes the Africans will say we feel as though we're in a low-grade war. And that's not a takeaway from what's happening in other countries. I'm not negating what's happening there, but you feel like you're in a low-grade war with these murders. On average, upwards of between 52 to 72 people are murdered per day in this country. And then we see the violent outbursts occurring in America, and those are mirrored in a country as small as this.
Yeah. Those are really serious numbers. What are people in Colombia saying about what we're seeing in the United States?
Yeah, I think it depends on who you ask about it, because I think, I can speak for the majority of the Colombians or so, but I guess at least like in my environment, this is not a topic that we talk in a daily basis. And I think most of the people in Colombia, we have a lot of things inside that maybe we don't have too much time to pay attention about what's going on outside Colombia because we have like really critical situations here. However, we depend so much from the United States for many things that any decision or any social or political situation that is happening over there, of course, is going to have any kind of consequence to us, even if it's on the markets or if it's something related to politics, because we are now entering in the election year. We have elections next year, so anything that is happening is being capitalized by the politics here, using what's going on there just to create kind of a situation here. So I will say that if I have to define something, I will say also fear, but the grade or the level of fear depends on who you are talking about this thing. Like if you're talking with entrepreneurs, or that's a thing. If you're talking with people that controls the markets, there's other thing. If you're talking about with someone who depends because they export things to the United States, it's other thing. But maybe the regular citizen, there's so much going on here because of our history of conflict that maybe we are not really into the mood of paying attention about it. But yeah, I guess it's like hard to define just one thing.
And when Julie's talking about a history of conflict, she's talking about a war in Colombia that went on for 50 years, 50. So it was at the end, toward the end of that war, that Lori and I went down to Colombia and gave some talks on the peace process.